Hey guys, it's Dane at ZIMM'S Guitars in Mesa, Arizona, and we've got some guitars to string up today. This first one looks like a Fender MZ5. That would be a made in Mexico from 2005. Let's put some new strings on it. Okay, here it is, a Mexican Fender. These are nice guitars. I see a little bit of dirt or adhesive on there. Oh, we're looking at the Fender Special Edition on the back there. This is kind of what they would call fat Strat, where you have a single humbucker, 5-way switch. The strings, I run my finger under the strings like this, and they are black with dirt and just totally disgusting. Again, this guitar is from 2005, and I think the strings have been on here since the 1980s. It feels that way. Let's plug it in, and let's see if it makes noise. Nice. Now, because this guitar did come with a case, it's not that dusty. The electronics are still working good. So I think what we need to do is just go ahead at this point and let's pull the strings off of it and start shining it up. Okay, so right off the bat, I'm seeing that the strings are wound around here backwards. So with my Ernie Ball string winder, now normally you hit the bottom button to tighten the strings. The top button here would loosen the strings. So I need to do the opposite here, and I need to hit the bottom button. Okay, let's get these things off of here. I'm going to do all 6 strings right at the same time. Made in Mexico. These are great Strats. If you don't believe me, listen to the Weezer song, Mexican Strat. Those guys love them too. I am a Weezer fan. Those guys are really good. I got my hash pipe. I should have a radio on, right? But then I'd be demonetized. So, jeez. I just can't wait for losing. Jeez. I happened to watch Napoleon Dynamite the other night. That movie is so awkwardly funny because it's so awkward. The poor people in that Napoleon Dynamite are walking through their lives in that movie like they're completely stoned out or something. It's super weird, but that's what makes it funny. So sometimes you can get these strings out of here without taking the back plate off, but I'm not going to be so lucky today. But that gives us a chance to take a look at what's going on inside here. Make sure we've got, you know, at least 3 springs on here. Sometimes when I get a used guitar, like this one, I own this guitar and it will be for sale after this video. But sometimes if there's 5 springs in here, I'll take 2 of the springs out and I'll leave it at 3. So I'm pretty sure that's what you got when you bought these things straight from Fender or straight from Guitar Center or wherever you got one of these things. Sweetwater. Although 2005, I'm not even sure Sweetwater was around yet. Sweetwater is crushing it right now in guitar sales. They are definitely the winner when it comes to sales numbers. 3 springs. Looks good. Yeah, but Sweetwater is crushing it right now. Good news for the guitar market right now, you know, is that even Guitar Center is hanging in there. They're starting to make a little bit of profit here and there. That YouTube channel, The Company Man, he did a video just yesterday, just recently, a couple of days ago now maybe, about Guitar Center. And, you know, they were in tough financial problems there for a long time. They filed for bankruptcy, but apparently they've restructured And things are looking better for Guitar Center, which for me in a used guitar shop, I don't mind at all that there's no competition problem with me in Guitar Center, because what Guitar Center does for me in the used guitar market is all these people will go to Guitar Center, and whenever their kids are like, Daddy or Mommy, buy me a guitar, they immediately go to Guitar Center and they buy one of those. And a lot of times it's very spontaneous, because every Guitar Center in the Phoenix metro area, there's a giant sign on the freeway. Now, we used to have our Tempe Guitar Center, and it was off the freeway, and it was a great location. And I think in Phoenix, it was in the Phoenix area, it was maybe one of the best locations, the Tempe Guitar Center, the old Tempe Guitar Center. But then, you know, like a year before they went into bankruptcy, they moved the whole store right off the I-10 freeway. And so now, and I'm like, why would they do that? But the only thing that I can figure is now all 5 locations in the Phoenix metropolitan area has a giant landmark sign out on the main freeway that runs right next to them. And the old Tempe Guitar Center was off of Elliott Road and kind of, you know, a few miles from the freeway. So having that giant sign out on the freeway, I think that was their goal. And I like the old store better. When Guitar Centers first started, they were kind of store that the carpet was sort of patched up with duct tape. And they were one of those locations where you felt comfortable handling the guitars. The average guy felt comfortable testing the guitars and, you know, stuff like that. And it made for a great environment. Unlike Sweetwater, where you can't test any of the items before you buy it, although they do have a good return policy. But the brick and mortar stores allowed you to walk in and plug in and test items. And that's where some of these new online places don't allow you to do that. But most places do have return policies now. And so you can buy something at Guitar Center or Sweetwater or Musician's Friend. And then if you don't like it, you can send it back. And nobody's feelings are hurt. So there is that. Okay, so now we can kind of look at these frets. Now there is a little bit of fret sprout going on here. And so here's what I do with some of that fret sprout. I have a little fret file that I made. And so I just run this file along the edge like this. One stroke along the corner of the fret, just to try to round it. And I roll over the top. And then I come back the other direction, and I'm just trying to round that fret a little bit. Feels better already. And you don't get too crazy on it, but my file is smooth on the top and on the bottom. And so I kind of hit these fret ends on all my used guitars if they feel like they need it, because the whole process only takes me a few seconds or maybe a few minutes. So yeah, there is that. A lot better. A lot better. And then with a maple fretboard like this, you don't really have to worry about damaging the binding or anything like that. So I take some sandpaper, and this stuff, I mean, it hardly has anything left to it. But I'll just go ahead and give it one of these numbers right along the edges of these frets. And that makes that really nice and smooth. And then another thing that I like to do is really take a close look at the nut, and the nut looks nice so far. I don't see anything crazy going on with the nut. But I use one of my fret guards, and you can get these things, you know, on Amazon or just about anywhere. And then I use a little bit more of that 1000 grit wet dry sandpaper. This might be 800 grit. I think it's 1000 though. And I just sort of hit these frets a little bit like that. And that really gives them a nice shine. And I'm not working at it so hard that I'm taking any of the fret material away. I'm just kind of getting the top layer of dirt. And now a lot of frets like that, that Yamaha that I restrung a couple of days ago, where you could see the little dents and divots in all the frets from the strings, I don't feel any of that on here. So this is a nice one. Some guitars, unfortunately, they're borderline. They need fret jobs because somebody's really played them a lot and they really love that guitar. This one kind of looks like it didn't get played very often. And it is the maple neck. And sometimes you can even see little dents in the fingerboard where a guy's fingernails would dig down in and you would wear the finish off of those. This one, unfortunately for this little made in Mexico Strat, she didn't get to be played very often, and she lived in her case. So maybe one of you guys can come in the store and take this beautiful red Strat off my hands and play it and wear the frets out on it. This guitar needs love. That's what I'm trying to say. This guitar has been taken good care of, but it needs to get played. It's not serving its purpose. She needs to be played. Let's take a look at the tuners. Okay, that one's a little loose. So I have my wrench here, and this is a 10mm wrench. And I just snug these babies down a little tiny bit. There's a little stigma about red guitars. Some guys don't like red guitars. Okay, today's string choice. Ernie Ball, Super Slinky, my favorite strings, 9 through 42. I put Super Slinkies on everything that is Stratocaster scale length, 25.5 scale length. I put 9s on there. Gibson 24 3/4 inch scale length. I put 10s on those. Hey, Bray.
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing. Restringing.
Cool. You hear that Florida's getting taken over by giant African land snails?
What? Snails?
They're like the size of a guinea pig, or I guess like a big rat.
So there's like millions of snails walking around?
I guess there's a bunch of them.
Huh.
They had to quarantine an area because of the snails.
Wow.
Uh,
I thought monkeys were taking over Florida.
I think everything is taking over Florida.
So there's an epidemic? No, there's a giant...
Yeah, an epidemic would work. Giant snails.
Giant snails.
They do have monkeys there too. They have 2 separate packs of monkeys.
That just run wild?
And I think one of them carries the type of herpes that's deadly to humans.
Shit. That used to be one of our biggest fears back in the 80s when we were out playing bar gigs and getting herpes, man. So now you can get herpes from monkeys.
Yep.
I vacationed my family. We went to Florida when I was a little kid. And I think it was 1976, and we went to Disney World. And the reason I think it was 1976 is because driving around as a little kid, I remember hearing Paul McCartney's song, Silly Love Songs.
Oh, yeah?
That was a big hit, man. I probably, as a little kid, I heard that, 3 or 4 times on the radio station, just cruised around Orlando, Florida.
What movie was that in? That song?
Silly Love Songs?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't remember it ever being in a movie.
I think that's where I heard it the first time, was in a movie.
Oh, did you hear the latest thing about, Rick Beato did a video, but Stranger Things is a TV series, and I don't watch it. It's on Netflix, I believe. But Stranger Things started playing a Kate Bush song.
Oh yeah, Running Up That Hill.
And Kate Bush is 63 years old, and she's got a #1 hit song. So
Yeah.
she's the oldest person to have a #1 hit song. I think she's even older than Cher. When Cher had her #1 hit, Do You Believe in, I think it was Do You Believe in Love. And then, not only that, Stranger Things has Metallica's,
Master of Puppets.
that's right,
Yeah.
Master of Puppets. And so that's on Spotify right now as like number 16
Yeah.
on the Spotify charts. Metallica.
The 80s, they're coming back.
It was just good stuff. Everybody cared about music in the 80s. That's all we had. We didn't have cell phones and the internet and video games, and we were starting to get there, but we all just cared about music. And they made some good stuff back then. What's the latest on Weezer?
I don't know.
You heard the song Mexican Fender? It's a Weezer song. It's
I don't
called
know if I've
Mexican
heard it.
Fender. Or is it Mexican Strat? No, it's called Mexican Fender.
Huh.
It's about these babies right here. These things are great.
I
These are-
probably heard it and I just don't recognize the name.
You know, one thing about a made in Mexico Fender Strat like this is all the parts on this guitar. You could take USA Fender parts and they're all 100% interchangeable with this guitar. The pick guard, the pickups, the neck pocket is the same.
All the holes line up?
Everything, all the holes, all the pickup screw holes line up.
Oh.
So these things are kind of like old 1968 Camaros where you could get a ton of different parts for them and interchange them. So I'm on this kick about how amazing it is that the automotive market and the guitar market are so identical.
Very similar,
They're
yeah.
very similar. All right, so back to the restring video. Let's tune it up and we'll check the string height. Then I'm going to play it a little bit.
All right.
Okay, so I got my snark on here. And I'm going to say the snark tuners are the greatest guitar invention of the last 20 years. I keep repeating that, thinking that somebody else is going to grab hold of that and say, you know what, I can't wait for Music Is Win or Rick Beato or somebody to say, you know what, I heard that the snark tuner is the best guitar invention in the last 20 years. I need a Philip McKnight or one of those guys to hear me keep saying that and to actually say it. But I'm going to say it one more time. The snark tuner is the best guitar gadget in the last 20 years. You see everybody using these things now. Go see a concert and Slash will have one of these things on his headstock tuner. Well, maybe not Slash, but all those musicians that don't have a guitar tech handing the artist a freshly tuned guitar, all the rest of those guys that don't have guitar techs, you can see they got a snark tuner hanging. on their headstock. And I remember Mark Agnesi from when he was back at Norman's Rare Guitars talking about, take the snark off your guitar, man. Always, that was his pet peeve for some reason. He hated seeing the snark. Here's what I kind of do to stretch the strings out. I put one hand over here like this to protect the nut. And then you just kind of tug on these strings a little bit. Your E string, your A string, your D string. Especially the wound strings. Now when it comes down here to your B string and your E string, you don't want to tug too hard on those because you'll break them. But you want to kind of just tug on them a little bit, and that'll make sure that they're seated nicely in the saddle. And but you do got to keep one hand over top here, because if you start tugging on this, you'll break the nut. And I know that because I've done it. So you just tug on them a couple of times. And then when you look, I've tugged that all the way down to a C. So I was able to stretch that string 2 full steps down. Okay, so I'll set this in here, and then I'll just take a filler gauge and run it underneath. And that's pretty flat. So it's looking good right there. Pretty flat. A little tiny bit of relief in the neck, which is just perfect. I'll go with it. Alright, so let me double check the tuning. So this guitar does have its whammy bar, and it has a nice hard shell case with it. There's our E string. So it's a nice pretty red color. There's been some awesome artists out in the world that have played red guitars. The neck pickup sounds awesome. There's a lot of guys that will argue, hey man, these made in Mexico pickups, I'm telling you, they sound just as good as anything I've heard in any USA made pickup. Okay, there it is. Now, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, I used made in Mexico Strat. I would price at $350 to $400. They've gone up in value. So something like this with this case, it's bringing about $500. It is July of 2022, and this is what you can get for your $500. Thank you guys so much for watching.